the point that you emphasize a lot in the material is this is not competitive. You're not trying to compete with any other organizations. You're trying to provide information for whoever is out there who wants to use it. But we haven't gotten to the most important question yet. And I think this is the question that drives a lot of what you're doing here. Can you make a living?
Every single person.
As your grandmother used to
100
say, but can you make a living?
Right, right. Is this a real job? Like every single person I talk to. So I talk to many, many people, from the inception of the program to now about what we could do to be helpful. We're always sort of open to feedback. What are the ideas that are going on? Why aren't there, more people practicing in this area? What are the barriers? 100% of the people said, there aren't enough jobs. How do you make money doing this? What is the formula that works, right? And I think we have to recognize, again, if we look at animal law, define it broadly, that there are a lot of people already doing it. Nobody has to do this from whole cloth. You can, right? There's still enough opportunity to be creative, but 100% unequivocally, the answer is yes, you can make a living practicing animal law. So this practice models module that we are in the very end editing stages of now was meant to be a very detailed assessment of how does one, actually make money and what are the business models that can kind of marry the meaningful work for animals with a sustainable and sometimes even lucrative law career. I think there's a big myth that people have that animal law is practiced only in pro bono context or only as nonprofit or sort of, solo or boutique animal law firms. That's not true. There's animal law being practiced in every single type of legal setting and every role you can think of, and at every income level, at every risk appetite, at every level of kind of, all the way from formulaic to very novel and creative, right? It comes down to, you have to know yourself and you have to know what kind of your bottom lines are. And we give you a lot of guidance in how you kind of go through that process.
And you're not just talking about somebody who wants to go out and start their own firm. I mean, you can be in big law and want to stay in big law and make the big bucks. And you can take your pro bono cases, but I think the point that you make so strongly is no matter what size your firm is, there are potentially paying animal law cases that people need lawyers for that you can expand your practice, without like learning an entirely new area of law.
Yeah, and I will even go further than that. I'll say, and if we think about this as a pie chart, right? You would say there are cases that sort of your private, what I would call a community or general public demand, right? That's a big wedge of the pie. You have your impact litigation that's usually done by nonprofits, but also hand in hand with private attorneys. I mean, that's how impact litigation is done. And you have, like you say, pro bono. You have some people working inside big law firms making, big law money doing animal law, not pro bono, right? But let's look just for a moment at that wedge of public demand, let's call it. It is very clear, based on talking with the people who live this is their lived reality, right? That there is way more demand than can be filled in that particular area. So everybody that we talk to who is a small or solo animal law office, and let's park the question of, we're not just talking about that, but for this particular wedge, everybody said they get about 1,000 inquiries a year. Now, there's not even one of those in every state, right? But 1,000, let's assume for the sake of just conservative estimate that there's about 1,000 inquiries that would come in each state every year. Those lawyers are only able to take a tiny handful of that. It's, a couple percent that they can even take on. And by the way, just as a little asterisk here from a business model point of view, they all said, if you're going to do that, you have to charge for your consultations because it's a huge percentage of your time. And you are really providing value and you're really adding something, to those inquiries, because a lot of those people would not realize that the law is not really going to help them. It's not going to be an ROI.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do want to go forward and pay to be able to, for the principle of it, right? They're upset about what's happened and it is a real, problem and injustice. So what we know is, let's say there's 50,000 cases. Let's say nearly all of them are not being handled. They don't even get to an attorney, let alone go through the process of a full-blown engagement. Now, we also know for those types of cases, there's about 3 matter types that come in the door that roughly speaking comprise about 80% of the inquiries. So that would be dog bites, pet custody, and vet malpractice, and what I'll call like similar torts and contract issues. So three things. Those areas, they are certainly specialized areas, but they are not impossible to learn. They're not that hard to learn. Mm-hmm. We are in the editing stage of our dog bite stuff, and we're going to be doing vet malpractice next. And we're front loading some of these high demand areas as we've learned this. But there's also a finite list of the remainder of types of matters that come in, maybe some service dog stuff, maybe some landlord-tenant stuff, right? So it is not that hard to start incorporating these types of matters into either a full-time animal law practice or a practice that's doing other things and wants to take on animal law cases. So, I mean, a family law practice that wants to take on pet custody, right?
Right. I'm thinking particularly of a landlord-tenant firm, which I don't know, maybe it's not the same everywhere, but in New York City, that is a really specialized field. L&T lawyers, that's what they do. But it's really helpful for them to, rather than an animal law firm bringing in landlord-tenant, which in a place like that might be hard, mm-hmm. for landlord-tenant firms to bring in animal law cases, that's really powerful.
And what I would really love to be able to do, the value I'd really love to see ALPA providing, is educating those attorneys who are already really good at what they do about how to take the animal's interests into account, how to practice in a way that is looking at, sort of improving the lot of animals through this type of practice. It's so much more efficient to take somebody who, already has the legal skills. They already know how to be a lawyer. They're already sort of set up to do that, and say to them, you care about animals. I mean, I don't think we have a values mismatch in our society, in our world, right? And not to get like philosophical here, but like most people care about animals, right? It's like 97% of the population around the world, no matter how you do it, right? So I think our barriers are not related to values. They're related to just norms and practices and the sort of mundane things that we have to start lowering the barriers of entry for. But the one real takeaway point is that there is way more demand in terms of these public sort of, matters that come than is being met. So that's a huge area of opportunity.
Yeah, I wanted to say one more thing too, just because some people might not be aware, but when you were talking about dog bite cases, I would imagine a lot of the ones that you're talking about people might want to take, that people don't even know this whole part of the dog bite issue exists, are the dangerous dog hearings. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's not so much like whose homeowner insurance is going to have to pay for the bite. It's more what's going to happen to the dog.
Well, let me tell you, I knew nothing about dog bite law before I started doing this particular research. I talked to a lot of people who are really the experts on this and did a lot of research. And I am now radicalized on this topic, right? Because I don't think the law for dogs is fair to the dogs. No, I think that dogs
not even remotely.
They end up getting sort of thrown under the bus. They become kind of, a vehicle for people, increasing the amount of dollar recovery on there. But I will say, so the sort of basics is you have the dangerous dog and similar like vicious dog, nuisance dog hearings and determinations. There's a lot of opportunity for animal lawyers to come in, especially at the initial hearing level, because there are we're hearing, for example, Los Angeles, you'll get a ticket. Let's say you have a dog, your dog bites somebody, you'll get a ticket from animal control and it will say, your dog has been determined to be dangerous. You don't need a lawyer, but you can come and appeal that. Well, it's not actually an appeal. It's just the initial hearing.
Seriously, been determined by whom?
Right. I mean, the level of just the constitutional issues that arise, the fact that people have no idea that they should get an attorney, right? And some of the basic evidence things that, I could tell you stories, another time about just how bad this ends up working out. And the reality is, when an attorney takes on a dangerous dog matter for the first time, they are going to be depressed at the end of it, right? They're going to be blindsided by how negative the room is, right? It feels like mob justice a little bit. Everybody wants to go after the dog. And we can help equip people to really understand how to get around that and how to do this well.